Are you looking to control your anger? I am going to share the number one thing you can do to accomplish your objective. Now, this might sound crazy. Don't hang up on me, but I'm actually going to show you how to befriend your anger. And by the end of this short video, you will understand how to do this and why it accomplishes your objective in the best way possible. To start, there are three things that are super critical to understand. One is, what's your objective? Because you're watching a video called How to Control Your Anger, but I think your actual objective is to prevent the negative things that happen to you and maybe others and maybe your relationships by not controlling your anger. Right? So maybe you're somebody who goes from 0 to 100 and you hit rage and you do out of control things and it's destructive to everybody. You want to prevent the destructiveness, right? Or maybe you're somebody who kind of suppresses your anger, puts up, and then boom, explodes. And again, all that time suppressing the anger is no fun. And the explosion probably does damage. Or maybe you're somebody who just wants to get rid of anger altogether, just get rid of it. And that's probably because you're not comfortable with it and maybe don't really understand what its purpose is, because it has a purpose, which is the second key thing to understand. Anger is a valid emotion. The feeling of anger is very different than the acting out of anger. Most of us think of anger as like this thing which is like outside and scary, but anger is actually an emotion that has information for us. And then there's also the acting out, what we do with our anger. So separating those two things, very important. And number three, understand there's a difference between anger and rage. Rage is like the ultimate explosion that really comes out of powerlessness. It's possible to effectively handle your anger without it leading to rage. So again, we have to separate those two things. So with those three concepts under your belt, I'm going to show you how to befriend your anger and why it's super important. There's 4 steps to befriending your anger. So, number 1, let's invite your anger to tea. Now, right now, you might think that sounds very silly, but I just want you to picture your anger. Let's give your anger a form. What does your anger look like? Can you turn your anger into a character? What character might it be? And I'd love to know what your anger looks like. So do post a comment below, because it's great to hear how people can sort of conceptualize their anger as a separate person or being or even form. So now that you've visualized your anger, let's invite it in. Let's invite it into your home for tea. Now, be brave. Let your anger have a seat on the couch. Remember that the feeling of anger is different than how it's acted out, and your anger wants to be listened to. So this concept of inviting all your emotions into tea is actually one that I learned through the Buddhist tradition, but I do believe it's used in other traditions as well. But really accepting all of our emotions and learning what they mean and why we have them is super important, because we're going to talk a little bit later about this trying to control them, which doesn't really work. Okay, so now you have your anger. Visualize it clearly. If you need to sort of close your eyes, take a deep breath, really picture your anger sitting on the couch in your living room, and you guys are going to have a conversation. Ask your anger, what does it want to tell you? Why is it so angry? Is there an emotion that it's hiding? Is there a deeper reason for the anger? And we're not really talking about the storyline, although if your anger wants to tell you a little bit of the storyline, that's fine. But we're really trying to understand the core issue. So very often, if you listen to your anger really clearly, you might hear, I'm hurt, or you might hear, I'm scared, or your anger may just be going over and over, it's not fair. And yeah, those are the reasons we get angry. It's worth listening to. So for example, if you have a friend and you are a good listener, there might be times where your friend just needs to talk and you're able to listen. You don't actually become the friend. You listen. You're there to listen and support. So you don't have to become your anger. One reason I had you visualize your anger is that separating a little bit from some of our thoughts and some of our emotions is super helpful, because then our observer and our wise mind can kick in and figure out what's going on. So as you really listen to your anger, you will not only hear what might be underneath it, but you'll understand what your true objective is. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say you share a household with somebody you really care about. Could be a loved one, could be a friend, somebody you really care about. You value the relationship, but they never friggin' do the dishes. And they leave their dishes in the sink all the time. And let's say you've put up with it, you put up with it, you put up with it, and then you explode. That explosion can damage the relationship, right? And I'm guessing if you're watching a video on how to control your anger, it might be because those explosions have caused damage to you and to your relationships. So what's your real objective? Your real objective is probably to feel cared for. Your real objective is probably to feel heard, to not be taken advantage of, and maybe to have a clean sink, okay? So if you really listen to that anger that's building and you can validate that, yeah, this kind of isn't fair. And then you can think through your response, which we're going to get to in step number 3 a little bit more. But if you can think through your response, maybe then it's time to sit down with your loved one or roommate and say, hey, this has been really bugging me. What can we negotiate here? What can we work out? If you really hate doing the dishes, how about you pick up that other task? Or whatever creative solution, you're a creative person, you can come up with creative solutions, right? So this enables you to say, yeah, this really isn't fair. So what can we do about it? And then discuss it with the person in a way that can be productive. Now, obviously, that's a simple example. And that also assumes that your loved one or roommate is a reasonable person. So let's turn it into a situation where no, they're not a reasonable person and they explode in anger all the time. Then your anger might actually be telling you, I'm a little scared here. I'm scared. I feel invalidated. And again, if you validate those emotions that are under your anger, you then can decide, do I want to stay in this situation? How do I protect myself? What do I need to put in place to protect myself? And if it takes me a little while to get out of this situation, maybe I'll just do the dishes in the meantime and get out as soon as I can. So obviously, all these situations are super complicated, but by listening to your anger and validating what it has to say, I believe you will see things more clearly. So let's go to that step number 3, which is to respond, not react. One problem with anger is that it causes many of us to just boom, react. We go into fight, flight, or freeze. Whatever our normal survival mode is, right? We all have a favorite of those. We go boom right into it. Going through this process of befriending your anger, of inviting it in, of really listening to it, picturing it and listening to it, gives you the time and space to begin to respond to the situation rather than erupting or running away. Responding, not reacting, enables you to go to your true objective, right? In the first situation with the dishes, the objective might be to maintain the relationship, but also feel valued. I can do that the best if I'm in a reasonably regulated mode, right? I'm not being overreactive, and I can have a conversation with this person who does care about me. In that more difficult situation with somebody in your life who explodes at you all the time, your objective might be to get them to change their behavior. But unfortunately, we can't change other people. So this is where working on your own boundaries and really understanding boundaries, because boundaries does not mean we get to change the other person. Responding versus reacting means we bring in what is within our control and what is not, and changing that other person's anger or their response, not within our control. And very often we don't set boundaries with people, and we don't have good boundaries because we have some kind of negative core belief under much of what we do. We have a negative core belief that really holds us back from functioning well. And I do actually have a boundary personality quiz, and it highlights your positive core belief that might also kind of reflect a negative core belief, and I tie it together in the results I'll give you. But I think it can give you some really good insight as to why you may not set the boundaries you know you need to set. Anger is often, if not almost always, about boundaries in some way or another. So responding and not reacting also requires us to really kind of slow things down. And this brings us to point number 4, which is to not try to control your anger, but befriend it, develop compassion for it, understand that your anger is trying to protect you. It may be misguided here or there. The way you acted out might be a little off of that goal of protecting yourself, but anger is there to protect you. It's valid. Emotions overall can't be controlled. They can sometimes be suppressed, right? We can really push them down, but they eke out elsewhere. They leak out. And anger actually almost is famous for doing this, right? If you're angry about something and you can't direct your anger towards the object, or you think you can't, it will leak out to everybody else around you. You'll be irritated all the time. You'll get angry at people you're really not even angry at. That's what trying to suppress your anger does. So controlling doesn't work. And come to think of it, do you like to be controlled? I don't like to be controlled. In fact, when people try to control me, that's when I get angry, right? So you don't like to be controlled. I'm pretty sure that when you tell your friends what to do, like give them advice, they may not do it. They don't want to be controlled. Nobody likes to be controlled, and your anger doesn't want to be controlled. We all want to be understood, and it's the same with your anger. So if you can understand that your anger wants to protect you, that speaking to it, understanding it, really kind of digging into it will help you figure out what your true objective is and what you can do about it. And then you'll have more self-compassion for your anger and for yourself. So this takes time. This takes practice. It takes, you could journal about it, talk about it with somebody, see a therapist, discuss some of these issues, but making it a practice to befriend your anger as well as some of your other emotions and really dig into what they're telling you can really improve your life. And I do have a number of videos on different emotions, emotional intelligence, so make sure to check those out. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. And if you found this video useful, if you could give me a thumbs up and also leave me a comment, let me know what you thought. I'll link that boundary quiz in the description to this video, and I'll see you next week.